She was humiliated on the first day, but the colonel saw her tattoo. He changed his mind. Ashley Miller swallowed her tears as the recruits around her laughed and whispered cruel comments about her appearance. At 22, she had made the hardest decision of her life by enlisting in the US Army, but now she wondered if it had been a terrible mistake. That was when Sergeant Thompson pointed his finger at her and shouted for her to do 20 more push-ups in front of all the other soldiers. The humiliation burned in her chest like hot iron, but she obeyed without question. It was then that Colonel Richard Harrison appeared on the training field, watching everything in silence. The scorching sun of Austin punished the barracks that March morning, and Ashley felt sweat running down her face as she struggled to complete the exercises. Her arms trembled with exhaustion, and tears threatened to escape her eyes, but she kept trying. The other recruits, all men, seemed to find amusement in her struggle. "Come on, Princess, thought the army was a joke?" one of her peers shouted, provoking laughter from the others. Ashley took a deep breath and attempted another push-up when she felt someone approaching. It was Colonel Harrison, a man in his 60s with graying hair and an imposing posture. He stopped right beside her, watching intently. "On your feet, Private Miller," he said firmly, but not harshly. She stood quickly, discreetly wiping her face with the back of her hand. That was when the colonel noticed the tattoo on her right arm. A majestic eagle with outstretched wings, intricately detailed in shades of black and gray. His eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed to have seen a ghost. "All of you, back to your exercises," he ordered the other recruits, who obeyed immediately. Then he turned to Ashley. "Private Miller, come with me. We need to talk." Ashley followed him silently across the barracks yard, feeling the curious stares of the other recruits burning into her back. The colonel walked with steady steps, but she noticed his hands trembling slightly. When they reached his office, he closed the door and gestured to a chair. "Sit down, please," he said, and for the first time his voice sounded less formal. He walked to the window, turning his back to her. "That tattoo, where did you get it?" "At a tattoo parlor right here in Austin, sir," Ashley replied, confused by the question. "Why do you want to know?" The colonel turned slowly, and she could see his eyes were moist. "It's not about where you got it. It's about why you chose that design, that eagle. Does it have special meaning to you?" Ashley looked down, gently touching the tattoo. "It's a tribute to my grandfather, sir. He raised me after my mother. After she left, he always said I had to soar high like an eagle, never give up on my dreams." "What was your grandfather's name?" the colonel asked, sitting heavily in the chair behind his desk. "Anthony Miller, sir. He worked on the railroad for 40 years, but always said he wished he'd been a soldier. He mentioned he had a friend who pursued the career and did very well." The colonel turned pale and buried his face in his hands. "Anthony Miller. Tony from the railroad," he murmured as if speaking to himself. "It can't be. Did you know my grandfather?" Ashley leaned forward, her heart racing. "Know him?" He lifted his eyes to her, tears now flowing freely. "He was my best childhood friend. We grew up together in the factory district here in Austin. We played soldier every day, dreamed of joining the army together." The news hit Ashley like a punch to the gut. For all those years, your grandfather would talk about a childhood friend who had pursued a military career, but he never mentioned the name. He always said with pride that the boy had become a great officer, but they had lost touch. "Richard," she whispered, remembering the stories. "My grandfather always spoke of a boy named Richard who lived up the street." "Richie. He used to call me Richie," said the colonel, smiling through tears. "And I called him Tony. He stopped speaking when he realized he had used the past tense. "Used to? Your grandfather, is he still—" Ashley shook her head, feeling the familiar lump in her throat. "He passed 5 years ago, sir. Heart trouble. Until the end, he spoke of his friend Richard, saying he was proud to know you had gone far." Silence filled the room for long minutes. The colonel stood and walked to a cabinet, from which he took a framed photo. It was an old black and white picture of 2 boys smiling at the camera. They couldn't have been more than 10 years old, wearing makeshift uniforms made from bedsheets and branches as swords. "That's the 2 of us," he said, showing the photo to Ashley. Your grandmother Carol took this picture. I remember it like it was yesterday. Ashley took the photo with trembling hands. It was incredible to see her grandfather as a child, with the same mischievous smile she knew so well, and beside him, a boy who was clearly Colonel Harrison. My grandfather kept a photo just like this, she said. It's on my dresser at home. He told me so many stories about the two of you. I promised him, said the colonel, returning to his chair. The day I entered the military academy, I promised that if his family ever needed help, I'd be there. But then came the transfer to Washington, D.C., then Miami, then other cities. We lost touch. A knock at the door interrupted the conversation. It was Sergeant Thompson. Colonel, sorry to interrupt, sir, but the other recruits are asking about Private Miller. They think she's getting special treatment. The colonel looked at Ashley, then at the sergeant. Tell the recruits Private Miller will be transferred to another unit, he said firmly. Ashley felt her world collapse. She knew this would happen. It was obvious she didn't belong there. I understand, sir, she said, standing up. I expected as much. Easy, Private Miller, the colonel interrupted. You'll be transferred to the Women's Special Operations Unit, the same unit where your mother served. Ashley froze. Sergeant Thompson also seemed surprised. My mother, she managed to whisper. Sir, my mother was never in the military. She worked as a nurse before she left. Laura Miller, the colonel said slowly. Brown hair, green eyes, born in 1975. She served here from 1998 to 2000. How do you know that? The colonel opened a drawer and pulled out a yellowed file. Because I was the officer in charge of the women's unit back then. Your mother was one of the best soldiers we ever had. Top of her class, expert in survival and urban tactics. Ashley's legs gave way, and she had to lean on the chair. That's impossible. My grandfather never told me. Maybe he didn't know, said the colonel, flipping through the file. Laura asked to keep it secret, said she wanted to surprise the family after graduation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Sergeant Thompson cleared his throat. Colonel, with all due respect, but Private Miller hasn't even passed the basic endurance test yet. Wouldn't it be premature? Sergeant Thompson, interrupted the colonel, his voice taking on an authoritative tone that brooked no argument. Are you questioning my decision? No, sir. I just think it would be fair for her to go through the same tests as the other recruits. The colonel stood and walked to the window overlooking the training field. Very well. Private Miller, do you accept a challenge? What kind of challenge, sir? An endurance test against Sergeant Thompson. If you outlast him in a pull-up hold, I'll confirm your transfer. If you don't, you return to basic training for another 3 months. Ashley looked at the sergeant, a sturdy man clearly in peak physical condition. She knew she was at a disadvantage, but something inside her refused to back down. It was as if she could hear her grandfather's voice saying that eagles don't fly in flocks. They soar alone. I accept the challenge, sir. 15 minutes later, a small crowd had gathered on the training field. Word of the challenge had spread quickly, and now all the recruits, instructors, and even some officers were there to watch. Ashley positioned herself on the bar beside Sergeant Thompson. Her hands were slick with sweat, but she focused. She remembered the afternoons helping her grandfather in the makeshift workshop in their backyard, carrying heavy parts and tools. He always said strength didn't come just from muscles. It came from determination. Ready? Asked the colonel, who served as the judge. Both lifted themselves until their chins cleared the bar and held. The first 2 minutes passed quickly. Ashley felt her arm muscles burning but kept her focus. Beside her, the sergeant seemed at ease. By the 5th minute, the fire in her arms was unbearable. Her body trembled and some recruits began whispering that she wouldn't last much longer. That's when she closed her eyes and tried to transport herself elsewhere. She remembered the night her grandfather had come home with the doctor's diagnosis, heart trouble, only a few months left. Instead of despairing, he'd said he wanted to use that time to teach her everything he knew. Over the next months, he'd trained her to be strong, independent, resilient. At the 10-minute mark, Sergeant Thompson began showing signs of fatigue. His breathing was ragged and she could see sweat dripping to the ground. Ashley was at her limit too, but something kept her there. "Come on, princess," one recruit shouted. "Show us women can't handle it." The words fueled her determination. She wasn't there to prove anything to those men. She was there to honor her grandfather's memory and uncover the truth about her mother. Then, at 15 minutes, the unthinkable happened. Sergeant Thompson released the bar, dropping to the ground with an exhausted groan. Absolute silence fell over the field. Ashley was still there, trembling, but holding on. "Private Miller," said the colonel, "you can come down now." She lowered herself slowly, her legs shaky. Her arms throbbed with pain, but she stayed on her feet. Sergeant Thompson, still on the ground, looked at her with a mix of surprise and respect. "How?" one recruit muttered. "How did she outlast the sergeant?" "Because strength isn't just muscle," Ashley panted. "It's also the will not to quit." The colonel stepped closer. "Private Miller, you've just proven you have the same spirit as your grandfather and your mother. Report tomorrow at 600 to the women's division. You'll begin specialized training." That night in the women's barracks, Ashley was met with hostility from the other female soldiers. They'd heard about the challenge and the transfer, but didn't know the details of her conversation with the colonel. "Well, look who decided to show up," said Captain Fiona Davis, a 35-year-old woman with a stern expression. "The little princess who won over the colonel with a tattoo." "It wasn't like that," Ashley Miller tried to explain but was cut off. "Here, every one of us worked hard to get where we are," the captain continued. "No one got special treatment, and suddenly a rookie shows up who hasn't even taken the basic tests and goes straight to special ops." "I did take the test," Ashley said calmly. "I lasted 15 minutes on the bar." "Oh yes, that little show with Sergeant Thompson," said another woman, Lieutenant Christine. "I bet it was all staged." Ashley felt anger rising but kept her composure. She knew reacting aggressively would only make things worse. "Look, I get why you're skeptical," she said. "If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same. But I didn't ask for special treatment. I just want to serve my country the best I can." "How noble," Captain Fiona mocked. "So patriotic. But talk is cheap. Let's see if you can handle the pressure when things get tough." 2 weeks had passed since Ashley joined the women's unit. The training was intense, and she was constantly tested by her superiors, who clearly expected her to fail. But to their frustration, Ashley not only kept up but excelled in many areas. During a survival exercise in the woods, she found food and water while more experienced soldiers were lost. In marksmanship training, her accuracy was surprisingly sharp, and in the morning runs, she always finished in the top 3. "This isn't normal," Lieutenant Christine muttered to Captain Fiona. "A recruit can't be this good without prior training." "I agree, it's strange," Fiona said. "I'll talk to the colonel." But it was the colonel who sought Ashley first. On a Thursday afternoon, he called her back into his office. "How's the training treating you?" he asked. "Well, sir, it's tough, but I'm keeping up." "And the other soldiers? How are they treating you?" Ashley hesitated. She didn't want to sound like she was complaining, but she also didn't want to lie. "Some are still skeptical of my abilities, sir." The colonel nodded. "That's understandable. They don't know your story, or your mother's. Speaking of that, sir, could you tell me more about her? Why did she leave the U.S. Army?" The colonel's expression hardened. "It's complicated, Private Miller. Your mother, she faced some trouble here." "What kind of trouble?" The colonel stood and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a dusty box. "Before we talk about your mother, there's something that belongs to you." He placed the box on the desk. It was old wood, with a small lock already open. "When your grandfather passed, the widow of one of his friends brought this to me. Said he wanted it given to you if you ever chose a military career." Ashley opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were yellowed letters, old photos, and a small golden locket. She picked up one of the letters and saw it was addressed to her in her grandfather's careful handwriting. "My dearest granddaughter. If you're reading this, it means you've decided to become a soldier. I always knew this day would come. You have your mother's warrior spirit and our family's determination. There's much I didn't tell you about your mother because I was protecting you. But now that you're walking the same path, you deserve the truth. Your mother didn't leave you for lack of love. She was forced to make a hard choice to protect our family. Seek out Colonel Richard Harrison. He was a good friend and can explain better. Be strong as an eagle, my girl. With all my love, Grandpa Anthony. Tears streamed down Ashley's face as she read. There were still more letters in the box, all addressed to her, written during the years of her grandfather's illness. "He wrote to you every week," said the colonel softly. "He always held on to hope that one day you'd come looking for answers." "Colonel, what happened to my mother? Please, I need to know." The colonel took a deep breath and returned to his chair. "Your mother was exceptional. When she arrived here in 1998, she was young, determined, and incredibly talented. In no time, she became the best in her class. We all believed she'd have a brilliant career. But there was a general at the time, General Campbell. He was known for, let's say, inappropriate behavior with female soldiers." Ashley felt her stomach twist. Did he do something to my mother?" "Your mother tried to report him, but General Campbell had powerful connections. Instead of investigating her claims, they started questioning her credibility. They said she was lying to get promotions." "And you? Did you believe her?" The colonel lowered his eyes, clearly ashamed. "I did. But I was just a major back then. I didn't have enough power to stand up to a general. And," he paused, swallowing hard, "and I was too cowardly to risk my own career." "What happened to her?" "She was pressured to resign. They told her that if she kept making accusations, they'd fabricate things that would damage not just her career, but her family too. Your grandfather could lose his job at the railroad. You could face trouble at school." "So she gave up. She sacrificed everything to protect you. She resigned, left town, and we never heard from her again." Silence filled the room. Ashley tried to process everything she'd just heard. "And this General Campbell? What happened to him?" "He retired 10 years ago. He was never formally investigated. Died 3 years ago, taking his secrets to the grave." "But other women? Surely he didn't stop with my mother." "There were rumors over the years, but no one ever had the courage to report him formally. The military climate back then was very different from today." Ashley stayed quiet for a few minutes, staring at her grandfather's letters. "Colonel, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you regret not standing up for my mother?" The question hit the colonel like a punch. He closed his eyes and bowed his head. "Every single day of my life. I promised your grandfather I'd look after his family, and I failed when they needed me most. Maybe now you have a chance to make it right," Ashley said gently. "How so?" "By helping me find out if there are more victims. By helping me clear my mother's name. By making sure this never happens to another woman again." The colonel looked at her with admiration. "You're just like her, and your grandfather. Determined, brave, just. So, will you help me?" "Private Miller, it would be an honor." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following week, the colonel quietly began digging through old records. He discovered there had indeed been other informal complaints against General Campbell, but all had been dismissed without investigation. 5 women over his 20-year career. One of them stood out. Retired Major Teresa Morgan. She had served around the same time as Laura and had requested a sudden transfer right after Ashley's mother left. "Teresa lives here in Austin," the colonel told Ashley. "She owns a flower shop downtown. It might be worth talking to her." "Do you think she'll want to talk about it?" "I don't know, these are old painful wounds. But perhaps seeing you, Laura's daughter, might motivate her to tell the truth." On Saturday morning, Ashley visited the flower shop. It was a small but well-kept place, with colorful plants and flowers decorating the entrance. A woman around 50 years old was watering the plants. She had brown skin, short hair, and a kind smile. "Good morning," Ashley said, approaching. "Are you Teresa Morgan?" Yes, I am. How can I help you? My name is Ashley Miller. I'm Laura Miller's daughter. Teresa dropped the watering can. Water spilled across the floor, but she didn't even notice. Laura, she whispered, you're Laura's daughter. Yes, ma'am. I'd like to talk to you about what happened in the US Army. Teresa looked around nervously. Come inside, she said quickly. Let's talk in the back. The rear of the flower shop was a cozy little office. Teresa closed the door and offered Ashley some coffee. How is your mother? She asked, still in shock. Actually, I don't know. She left when I was a baby. I'm trying to find out what happened. Teresa sank heavily into a chair. I thought this might happen someday. Your mother was so broken when she left. Can you tell me what happened? Teresa hesitated for a long moment. It's a very painful story. Not just for your mother, but for all of us who were there. Please, I need to know. Teresa took a deep breath and began. Your mother was the best of us. Smart, brave, dedicated. We all admired her. But General Campbell, he had a problem with competent women. Did he harass my mother? Harass is putting it mildly. He targeted women who stood out. It started with comments about their appearance, then special invitations to dinners and events. If a woman refused, he'd make her life hell. And with my mother. With your mother, it was worse because she confronted him publicly. During a ceremony, he made a comment about her body in front of other officers. She told him he was being inappropriate. He flew into a rage. What did he do? He started sabotaging everything she did, gave her impossible missions, criticized flawless reports, punished her for things others did without consequence. And when that didn't break her spirit, he went further. How? Teresa stood and walked to the window. He accused her of violating security protocols, said she'd shared confidential information with unauthorized people. It was a lie, of course, but he had witnesses willing to back his story. False witnesses. Officers who owed him favors. Men who didn't want to cross a powerful general. Then what? Your mother was called before a disciplinary board. They threatened not just to discharge her from the army, but to prosecute her for treason. Said she could go to prison. Ashley felt her blood boil. That's so unfair. Was there nothing she could do? There was one way out, Teresa said, returning to her chair. The general offered a deal. If she resigned voluntarily and never spoke of it again, he'd drop the charges. And she took it. She took it because she found out the threats weren't just against her. The general had investigated her family, knew where her father worked, what school you attended. He hinted that accidents could happen. Ashley's hands trembled with rage. He threatened a child. He threatened my grandfather. Your mother had no choice. She came to me the night before she signed the papers. She was devastated, cried in my arms for hours. Said the only thing that mattered was protecting you and your grandfather. And then she disappeared, resigned, packed her things and left. I never saw her again. The two sat in silence for several minutes. Ashley tried to process everything she'd heard. Teresa, why did you never report this? Because I was also his victim, said Teresa, her voice trembling. Shortly after your mother left, he started harassing me. I saw what had happened to her and I was afraid. I requested a transfer and left the US Army 2 years later. Do you have any proof of what happened? Teresa hesitated. I kept some things, documents, photos, some recordings. Recordings? Your mother was smart. She suspected something might happen, so she started recording some conversations. She gave me a copy before she left, asking me to keep it in case it was ever needed. Ashley leaned forward. Do you still have those recordings? I do. I've kept them all these years, waiting for the right time to use them. That time has come, Ashley said firmly. My mother couldn't have sacrificed everything for nothing. Other women shouldn't have to go through the same thing. Teresa studied her for a long moment. You're just like her, determined, brave. But you should know that stirring this up could be dangerous. General Campbell was powerful, and he had allies. You said he passed away. Yes, but the allies might still be out there. Men who took part in the cover-up, who have an interest in keeping the past buried. Even so, I want to try. I owe it to my mother, to my grandfather, and to all the women who suffered at that man's hands. Teresa nodded slowly. Then I'll help you, but we need to be careful. Very careful. That afternoon, Ashley returned to the base with a bag full of documents and a CD copy of the recordings Teresa had given her. She went straight to Colonel Harrison's office. "How did it go?" he asked. "Colonel, you need to hear this," she said, handing him the CD. They spent the next hour listening to the recordings. It was Laura's voice, young and resolute, talking to General Campbell. He was clearly making inappropriate advances, and she was politely refusing. In one recording, he even said that pretty women like her needed to know how to please their superiors. "This is enough proof," the colonel said, his voice tight. "This confirms the harassment." "But the general is already dead," Ashley reminded him. "What can we do now? We can clear your mother's name officially. We can make sure this is documented so future generations know the truth. And we can implement protocols so this never happens again." "Colonel, there's something else I want to investigate." "What?" "Teresa mentioned that the general had allies who helped fabricate the false accusations against my mother. Some of those men might still be active in the U.S. Army." The colonel looked concerned. "That's dangerous territory, Private Miller. Accusing active officers without solid proof could ruin your career before it even starts. But if we don't investigate, they might still be doing the same thing to other women." The colonel thought for a long moment. "There's a way to do this discreetly. I can personally review the files, look for patterns, similar cases that might have occurred." "You'd do that?" "Private Miller, I owe it to your mother and to your grandfather. I'll investigate everything I can." 2 weeks passed. The colonel had gained access to the historical archives and was analyzing cases of women who had left the U.S. Army abruptly between 1990 and 2010. The pattern was chilling. At least 15 women had requested discharge or transfer shortly after working directly with General Campbell or his close allies. "I found something interesting," the colonel told Ashley during one of their weekly meetings. 3 officers who were close to General Campbell are still active. One of them is stationed right here on this base." "Who?" "Major Robert Foster. He arrived here 6 months ago, transferred from Washington, D.C. In the archives, I found at least 4 cases of women who requested transfers from the department where he worked." Ashley felt a chill in her stomach. "What can we do?" "For now, observe. Be alert for any signs of inappropriate behavior, and if something happens, act immediately." As if fate were testing her resolve, 2 days later, Ashley witnessed exactly what the colonel had described. During a field exercise, she saw Major Foster making inappropriate comments to one of the younger privates, Corporal Sophia Parker. Ashley was cleaning her equipment when she overheard the conversation. "Sophia, you're doing well in training," said the major, in a tone that sounded more personal than professional. "Maybe we should discuss your career over dinner. I know a discreet restaurant in town." "Thank you for the offer, sir, but I'd prefer to keep professional conversations here on base," Sophia replied politely, though visibly uncomfortable. "Ah, what a shame," said the major, moving closer to her. "Ambitious girls like you usually know how to recognize opportunities when they arise." Sophia tried to step back, but the major grabbed her arm. "Sir, please." That's when Ashley decided to intervene. "Corporal Parker," she said loudly, approaching them. "Colonel Harrison is looking for you. He said it's urgent." Major Foster let go of Sophia's arm and turned to Ashley with an annoyed expression. "Private Miller, no one called you into this conversation." "Sorry, sir, I was just relaying the colonel's message." Sophia took advantage of the distraction and quickly walked away. Corporal Parker seemed to be heading off to attend to her duties. The major said coldly, "I suggest you do the same." "Yes, sir." Later, Ashley went to find Sophia in the dormitory. "Are you okay?" she asked. Sophia glanced around to make sure they were alone. "Thank you for stepping in. He was making me uncomfortable." "Is this the first time he's done this?" "No. Yesterday he made a comment about my uniform being too tight, and last week he found an excuse to touch my shoulder during an explanation." "Sophia, you need to report this." "To whom?" "He's a major. Who's going to believe me?" "Colonel Harrison will believe you. I guarantee it." Sophia hesitated. Are you sure? I don't want to cause trouble and end up transferred or kicked out. You won't be punished for reporting harassment. It's against military regulations. Okay, but will you come with me? I'm scared to go alone. Of course, let's go tomorrow morning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Ashley and Sophia went to Colonel Harrison's office. He received them with the seriousness the situation demanded. Corporal Parker, tell me exactly what happened, he said, turning on a digital recorder. Sophia recounted all the incidents in detail. The colonel asked precise questions and took careful notes. Were there any witnesses to these incidents? He asked. Ashley saw what happened yesterday, Sophia said. Private Miller, can you confirm? Yes, sir, I heard the entire conversation. Major Foster invited Corporal Parker to dinner and made comments about her being ambitious and knowing how to recognize opportunities. And was there physical contact? Yes, sir. He grabbed her arm when she tried to step away. The colonel turned off the recorder. Corporal Parker, I want you to know you did the right thing by reporting this. I'll initiate a formal investigation immediately. What if he tries to retaliate? Sophia asked. Any attempt at retaliation will be treated as an additional serious violation. You're protected by military regulations, and personally, I guarantee nothing will happen to you. After Sophia left, Colonel Harrison spoke with Ashley. I think we've found our first case to test the new guidelines, he said. New guidelines? I've been working on a specific protocol for harassment cases based on what happened to your mother and what we're seeing now. Every complaint will be investigated by a mixed committee with men and women, and there will be guaranteed protection for the victims. That's wonderful, Colonel. But first, we need to deal with Major Foster, and I suspect he won't like being investigated one bit. The Colonel was right. When Major Foster was informed about the investigation, his reaction was one of fury and indignation. This is absurd, he shouted in the Colonel's office. I was just being polite to a subordinate. Major Foster, there are specific reports of inappropriate behavior, the Colonel said calmly. The investigation will follow standard protocols. Protocols? What protocols? Some spoiled little private makes a false accusation, and I have to submit to this. Major, your reaction isn't helping your case, the Colonel observed. My case? Colonel Harrison, I have 20 years of an impeccable military career. I won't let some little girl destroy my reputation with lies. The accusations will be investigated impartially. If they're unfounded, your reputation won't be affected. And if I refuse to participate in this farce, then you'll be violating a direct order, which will result in additional disciplinary action. Major Foster stormed out, slamming the door. The Colonel shook his head, foreseeing more complications. And there were. The next day, Sophia sought out Ashley in a panic. He's trying to intimidate me, she said, tears in her eyes. What happened? He showed up in the cafeteria where I was having coffee, sat at the next table and kept staring at me. When I got up to leave, he said, girls who make up stories usually find reality can be much worse than fiction. Did you report this to the Colonel? Not yet. I'm afraid they'll think I'm exaggerating. Sophia, this is clear intimidation. It's exactly the kind of retaliation the Colonel said wouldn't be tolerated. They went together to Colonel Harrison's office again. This time he was visibly angry. Major Foster was explicitly instructed to keep his distance from Corporal Parker during the investigation, he said. This is a direct violation of orders. What happens now? Sophia asked. Now, Major Foster will be temporarily suspended while the investigation continues, and I'll assign an officer to accompany you for the next few days to ensure your safety. Suspended? Ashley couldn't hide her surprise. Won't that make him even angrier? Probably, the Colonel admitted, but we can't allow intimidation. If we back down now, we're saying harassment and retaliation are acceptable. That afternoon, news of Major Foster's suspension spread through the base like wildfire. Reactions were mixed. Some women quietly celebrated, feeling they finally had protection. But some men, especially the older ones, openly criticized the decision. This is overkill, grumbled a veteran sergeant during dinner. "In my day, men could be kind to women without being accused of harassment." "Kind is different from inappropriate," Lieutenant Christine shot back, having changed her opinion about Ashley after witnessing her courage in defending Sophia. "Oh, sure. Now any compliment will be considered harassment. Where is this world headed?" The argument quickly escalated, dividing the cafeteria. That's when Ashley stood up. "Can I say something?" she asked loudly. The cafeteria fell silent. "My mother served at this base 25 years ago. She was an excellent soldier, top of her class, dedicated to service. And do you know what happened to her?" "Ashley," whispered Sophia, concerned. "She was harassed by a superior. When she reported it, they made false accusations against her. They threatened not only her career but also her family. She was forced to choose between justice and protecting her daughter." The silence in the cafeteria was absolute. "Do you know what choice she made? She gave up everything. Her career, her dreams, her daughter, to protect a 2-year-old child who didn't even know her mother existed." Some people lowered their eyes, clearly uncomfortable. "So when I hear someone complain that, 'In my day it was different,' I think, yes, it was different. It was worse. Women suffered in silence because they had no choice. Now they do. And that should be a reason for pride, not complaints." "Where is your mother now?" asked a voice from the back of the cafeteria. Ashley hesitated. "I don't know. She disappeared to protect our family, and for 20 years I believed she had abandoned me. I only learned the truth when I joined the army." Captain Fiona, who had been one of the most hostile toward Ashley at first, stood up. "Private Miller, I owe you an apology. When you arrived, I thought you were using connections to get special treatment. I had no idea you were here seeking justice for your mother." "It's not just for my mother," said Ashley. "It's for all the women who went through the same thing, and for all those who still might if we don't change things." After dinner, Colonel Harrison called Ashley for a private conversation. "Your speech was brave," he said, "but also dangerous. So, now everyone knows you're behind Major Foster's investigation. It was time for them to stop speculating and learn the truth. Ashley, there's something I didn't tell you. Something I found while going through the archives." "What?" The colonel hesitated, clearly wrestling with a difficult decision. "I found a record of where your mother was last seen." Ashley's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" 3 years ago, a former servicewoman contacted me. She said she saw a woman who looked a lot like Laura Miller working as a nurse at a hospital in San Antonio. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure if it was really her." "Do you have more details?" "I have the name she was using, Ann Harrison, and the name of the hospital." Ashley stood abruptly. "I need to go there. I need to find out if it's her." "Ashley, it might not be. 25 years have passed and people change." "Colonel, I have to try. Even if it's not her, I need to know." The colonel nodded slowly. "I'll arrange special leave for you, 3 days, but promise you'll return, no matter what you find." "I promise." 2 days later, Ashley was driving down the road to San Antonio. Her heart pounded so hard she feared it would stop the car. She had rehearsed 1,000 times what she would say if she actually found her mother, but all the words seemed inadequate. Mercy General Hospital was a modern 5-story building. Ashley parked and sat in the car for a few minutes, trying to gather her courage. At the reception, a smiling employee greeted her. "Good afternoon. I'm looking for a nurse who works here, Ann Harrison." "Ann Harrison, let me check. Yes, she works on the 4th floor pediatric wing, but her shift doesn't start until 2 in the afternoon." Ashley checked her watch. It was 12:30. "I can wait." "Of course. There's a cafe on the ground floor if you'd like." Ashley spent the next hour and a half drinking coffee and trying to steady her nerves. At exactly 2 o'clock, she returned to the 4th floor. "Nurse Ann Harrison?" she asked an employee. "Over there," the woman pointed down the hall. "The brunette with long hair." Ashley walked in the direction she'd been shown. She saw a woman from behind, organizing medications on a cart. She had brown hair, just like hers, tied in a ponytail. When the woman turned around, Ashley felt the world stop. It was her. Older, with a few wrinkles around her eyes, but it was definitely her. The same green eyes, the same face shape Ashley saw in the mirror every day. The woman noticed Ashley standing in the hallway staring. "Can I help you?" she asked politely. "Laura," whispered Ashley. The woman froze. The medication cart nearly slipped from her hands. "I'm sorry. I think you've mistaken me for someone else." "My name is Anne." "Laura Miller," Ashley said, taking a step forward. "Daughter of Anthony Miller, former soldier in the US Army." The woman's face went completely pale. She glanced around nervously. I don't know what you're talking about." "My name is Ashley Miller," Ashley said, her voice trembling. "I'm 22. I was born in Austin in December 2002. I was raised by my grandfather Anthony after my mother, after you left." Tears began streaming down the woman's face, but she still tried to deny it. "You're mistaken. I don't have any children." "I have a birthmark on my left shoulder," Ashley continued, "shaped like a crescent moon, and you have a scar on your right hand from when you cut yourself making me a sandwich when I was 2. The woman looked at her own hand, where a small scar was clearly visible. "How did you—" "Because Grandpa Tony told me. He told me everything about you. How you used to rock me to sleep singing Rockabye Baby. How you dreamed of being a great soldier. How you loved me more than anything in the world." Laura broke down. Tears flowed freely now, and she leaned against the wall to keep from falling. "Ashley," she whispered. "My Ashley." "Yes, Mom. It's me." They embraced right there, in the middle of the hospital hallway, crying as if they wanted to make up for all the lost years in a single hug. "My God," Laura sobbed. "How did you find me? How did you know?" "It's a long story, Mom. A story that involves you, Grandpa Tony, and Colonel Richard Harrison." Laura pulled back slightly, still holding Ashley's hands. "Richard? You know Richard? He's my superior in the army. You joined the army?" "Yes, Mom. I followed in your footsteps, and I found out the truth about what happened to you." Laura closed her eyes, as if trying to push away painful memories. "Ashley, you shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" "Mom, General Campbell passed away 3 years ago. There's no more danger." "Campbell is dead?" Laura seemed surprised. "Yes, and now we're investigating his allies who are still active. We're changing things, Mum, so other women won't have to go through what you did." Laura looked at her daughter with admiration. "You're doing what I didn't have the courage to do." "You had courage, Mum. You had the courage to protect me, to protect Grandpa Tony. You sacrificed everything for our safety." "And it was worth it," Laura said, touching Ashley's face. "Look at the strong woman you've become. Grandpa Tony would be proud of us both." "Anthony," Laura swallowed hard. "How is he? Does he still—" Ashley shook her head. "He passed away 5 years ago, Mum. Heart problems." Laura broke down again. "I couldn't even say goodbye. I couldn't even thank him for taking care of you. He knew, Mum. He always knew you loved us. And he left letters for me explaining everything. He never blamed you for leaving." They talked for 2 more hours. Laura told her about the years she spent in hiding, always afraid of being found by the men who had hunted her. She changed her name, her city, her profession. She never married, never had other children. She had always held on to the hope of one day returning to Ashley. "I used to follow you from afar," she confessed. "I knew which school you attended, knew you were doing well. Sometimes I'd stand on the corner just to watch you walk by. Why did you never approach me? Because I was afraid they'd find out, afraid of putting you in danger again." "Mom, do you want to come back? Do you want to come home?" Laura hesitated. "I'm scared, Ashley. I'm still scared." "You don't have to be. I'll protect you now. And so will Colonel Harrison. He feels guilty for not defending you back then. He wants to make it right. Richard was always a good man. He was just in a difficult position at the time. So will you come back with me?" Laura looked at her daughter for a long moment. "Yes, it's time to stop running." 3 days later, Ashley and Laura arrived together at the base in Austin. The news had spread quickly, and a small crowd had gathered to witness the return of the legendary soldier, Laura Miller. Colonel Harrison waited for them at the main entrance. When he saw Laura, his eyes filled with tears. "Laura, after all these years?" "Richard," she said, smiling through her own tears, "you haven't changed a bit. I owe you so many apologies. You owe me nothing. You were protecting your own family just as I was protecting mine. Now we're all here, and that's what matters." The reunion was emotional, but there was work to be done. Major Foster's investigation was underway, and Laura's presence added a new dimension to the case. "I want to testify officially," Laura told the colonel. "I want my story on record so it can serve as an example for future generations." "Are you sure? Reliving all this will be painful." "I'm sure. My daughter taught me that sometimes pain is worth it if it leads to justice." Laura Miller's official testimony became a historic moment at the base. For the first time, a victim of military harassment from the 90s was speaking openly about what had happened. Her courage inspired other women to come forward. During Major Foster's investigation, 3 more female soldiers stepped forward with accounts of misconduct. With so many witnesses and evidence, the case became undeniable. The major was discharged from the US Army and lost all retirement benefits. Most importantly, the case set a precedent for how future harassment claims would be handled. "We've created a new protocol," the colonel explained during a meeting with all the female soldiers on base. "Any harassment complaint will be investigated by a joint committee with guaranteed protection for the victim, and there will be serious consequences for retaliation." "What if the victim is of lower rank than the harasser?" asked one soldier. "Rank doesn't matter," said Laura, who had been invited to attend. "Misconduct is misconduct, no matter who it comes from." "But how do we ensure victims feel safe reporting?" asked another. "Through examples," Ashley replied, "by showing the system works, that reports are taken seriously, and that there are real consequences for offenders." After the meeting, mother and daughter walked together across the base courtyard. "I'm proud of you," Laura said. "You accomplished in months what I couldn't in years." "I didn't do it alone, Mom. It was because of your initial courage, your recordings, your evidence that we were able to prove everything. And because of your determination to seek the truth. You have the best of your grandfather, and I hope a little of me too. I have your courage, and now I have you back." They stopped in front of a monument honoring the soldiers who had served at the base over the years. "You know what I missed the most," Laura said. "What?" "To watch you grow up, to be there for the important moments in your life. Mom, we'll have plenty of important moments ahead. This is just the beginning." 6 months later, the military base in Austin was hosting a special visit. Representatives from other military bases across the country were there to learn about the new protocol for protecting women in the military, which was being implemented nationwide. Ashley had been promoted to corporal and assigned as the coordinator of the base's women's protection program. Laura, who had gone back to using her real name, worked as a nurse in the base infirmary and also gave talks about military harassment. During the ceremony introducing the new protocol, Colonel Harrison gave an emotional speech. "This program didn't come from the commander's initiative," he said. "It exists because 2 brave women decided justice was more important than comfort, because a mother sacrificed everything to protect her daughter, and because a daughter risked everything to honor her mother." The audience gave a standing ovation. Ashley and Laura sat in the front row, holding hands. "But most importantly," the colonel continued, "this is just the first step. Real change happens when we don't just change the rules but the culture, when each of us commits to making a difference." After the ceremony, there was a reception in the base's main hall. Ashley was speaking with some visitors when Sophia approached. "Ashley, I wanted to thank you again," she said. "If you hadn't encouraged me to report Major Foster, you would have found the courage eventually," Ashley interrupted. "You're stronger than you think." "Maybe. But it's good to know there are people willing to support us. There always will be. And now there are official protocols to guarantee it." Captain Fiona also walked over. Corporal Miller, can I talk to you for a moment?" They stepped away from the group. "I wanted to apologize again," Fiona said, "and also tell you something." "What?" I was also a victim of harassment. 10 years ago, when I was just a private, I never reported it because I was afraid I wouldn't be taken seriously. I'm so sorry. But seeing your courage, seeing what you and your mother accomplished, I decided to seek counseling. I'm finally facing those traumas. That's wonderful, Fiona. And there's more. I'm organizing a support group for women in the military who've been through similar situations. Would you like to be part of it? It would be an honor. The support group became an important part of life on the base. Every week, women gathered to share experiences, offer mutual support, and discuss ways to keep improving the military environment for women. During one of these meetings, surprising news arrived. Teresa Morgan, the former service member who had helped Ashley with information about her mother, was at the base. She wants to speak with you, the colonel told Ashley. Said she has something important to say. Ashley found Teresa in the colonel's office, accompanied by a younger woman she didn't know. Ashley, this is my daughter, Patricia, Teresa said. She just graduated from law school and specializes in harassment and discrimination cases. Nice to meet you, Patricia said. My mum told me all about you and your family, and I have a proposal. What kind of proposal? I'm starting a non-profit to help victims of military harassment. We want to document historical cases, offer free legal support, and push for changes in military legislation. That's amazing, Ashley said. We'd like you and your mother to be the organization's main spokespeople. Your stories have the power to inspire change across the country. Ashley looked at Colonel Harrison. What do you think? I think it's an opportunity to expand the impact of what you've already started here. But the decision is yours. Ashley knew that accepting would mean more exposure, more responsibility, more pressure, but it would also mean the chance to help women across the country. I'll talk to my mother, but my initial answer is yes. 2 weeks later, Laura and Ashley were in Washington, D.C., attending a public hearing at the House of Representatives about harassment in the armed forces. For the first time, mother and daughter shared their stories together before a national audience. When I left the U.S. Army in 2000, Laura said into the microphone, I believed I was protecting my daughter. Now I realize I was actually perpetuating a system that silenced victims. But today we're here, Ashley continued, not as victims but as agents of change, proving it's possible to break cycles of silence and impunity. The testimony was broadcast live on C-SPAN and echoed across the country. Dozens of women in the military reached out to Patricia's organization, reporting similar cases and asking for help. You've started something that goes far beyond a military base in Austin, Patricia said during the flight back. You've started a national movement. Back at the base, their routine had completely changed. Ashley divided her time between regular military training and her work with the Victim Support Organization. Laura had become a sought-after speaker, visiting military bases nationwide to talk about harassment prevention. Colonel Harrison had been promoted to general and assigned to lead the implementation of the new protocol across the country. Before leaving Austin, he called Ashley in for one last conversation. Private Miller, sorry, it's time I start calling you Sergeant Miller, he said with a smile. Sergeant? Ashley couldn't hide her surprise. Your promotion was approved yesterday for exceptional merit and extraordinary contribution to the U.S. Army. Thank you, General. But you know the real reward was reuniting my family and helping bring about change. I know, and that's why you deserve the promotion. You weren't seeking personal benefits. You were seeking justice. General, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you feel at peace now about what happened to my mother? The general thought for a moment. I still regret not being braver back then, but seeing what the two of you have accomplished, yes, I feel at peace. I feel like I finally kept the promise I made to your grandfather. He'd be proud of all of us. He would. Proud of the granddaughter who became a leader, the daughter who found the courage to return, and maybe even the cowardly friend who finally learned to do the right thing. A year after Ashley and Colonel Harrison's first meeting, the military base in Austin was celebrating Women in Military Service Day, a date that had been institutionalized nationwide. The ceremony took place in the same courtyard where Ashley had been humiliated on her first day. Now, She stood on the main stage wearing her sergeant insignia alongside her mother and General Harrison. "Exactly 1 year ago," Ashley said in her speech, "I was in this same spot, doing push-ups under the hot sun, being mocked by my male peers. Today I'm here to say that a woman's place is wherever she wants it to be, including in the armed forces." The audience, composed of service members of all genders, applauded enthusiastically. "But our fight doesn't end here," she continued. "Every day is an opportunity to build a fairer, more respectful, more inclusive environment. And that's not just women's responsibility, it's all of ours." After the ceremony, there was a celebration in the main hall. Ashley was talking to some visitors when she noticed a young private standing alone in the corner looking uncomfortable. She walked over. "Everything okay? You seem a little lost." "It's my first day here," the young woman said. "I'm nervous." "What's your name?" "Private Amanda Thompson." "Welcome to the base, Amanda. I'm Sergeant Ashley Miller. If you need anything, don't hesitate to come to me." "Sergeant Miller." The young woman's eyes lit up. "Are you Nurse Laura's daughter? I saw you on TV." "I am, and I promise your experience here will be very different from what my mom went through 25 years ago." "Thank you. That means a lot to me." "You're welcome." "And Amanda?" "Yes?" "If anyone treats you inappropriately, if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you report it immediately. Don't be afraid. The system works now." "Understood. I'll remember that." Ashley smiled and stepped away but kept watching as Amanda joined the other privates. It was good to know the young women arriving now would have a very different environment than what her mother had faced. Later that evening, Ashley and Laura were at home, in the same house where Ashley had grown up with her grandfather. They had decided to live together, making up for lost time. "You know what I was thinking?" Laura said, pouring tea for both of them. "What?" "Your grandfather was right when he said you'd soar high like an eagle. He just didn't imagine how high. Mum, I wouldn't have been able to fly if you hadn't given me wings." "What do you mean?" "Your courage in protecting me. Your determination to do what was right, even at a great personal cost. That taught me it's worth fighting for what's fair. And you taught me it's never too late to come home." They sat in silence for a few minutes, looking at the photos of her grandfather that decorated the room. "Ashley, can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Of course. All those years away, the only thing that kept me strong was imagining the day I could come back and find you. I dreamed of this moment. And now that the moment's here, now I know all those years of suffering were worth it, because they brought me back to you, and because our story can help other mothers and daughters avoid the same separation." "Mum, do you regret anything?" Laura thought for a long moment. "I regret not fighting harder back then, but I don't regret protecting you, and I definitely don't regret coming back. And I don't regret searching for the truth, even when everyone said I was being stubborn or difficult. You were never difficult. You were always determined, always. And that's a strength, not a flaw. End of story." Now tell us what you thought of this story of resilience and courage. Do you believe Ashley made the right decisions in seeking the truth about her mother? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. If this story moved you as much as it moved us to tell it, don't forget to like, and especially to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one.